He wanted to stop being poor at all costs, so he used his own family for rituals to escape poverty. He chose wealth over conscience, and by the time he realized the cost, his house was already silent. If poverty humiliated you every day, what would you do if becoming rich meant sacrificing the people you love most? Find out what happens in this epic tale of Obinna. Obinna Okafor had been poor for so long that poverty no longer shocked him, it mocked him openly. It followed him through Onitsha main market like a curse that refused cleansing, clinging to his clothes, his voice, his posture. Each morning, before the sun fully rose, Obinna pushed his old wheelbarrow across cracked roads, the wooden handles biting into his palms. By the time other traders were unlocking wide metal shops and greeting customers with confidence, he was already tired, already angry, already calculating how many insults the day would bring. His stall was small and crooked, patched with rusted zinc and prayer. Plastic buckets, bowls, and cheap plates hung from nails like defeated flags. Customers often passed without stopping. Those who stopped haggled him until profit vanished. Obinna watched younger men rise faster than him, men who once begged him for loans now driving cars that splashed mud on his trousers. Each splash felt intentional, deliberate, as though the world enjoyed reminding him of his position. At home, poverty announced itself loudly. Ifunanya, his wife, had mastered the skill of smiling while hungry. She stretched soup until it lost meaning, measured Gary with careful hands, and told the children stories to distract them from empty stomachs. Chibuzo, the first son, avoided school gatherings that required money. Nkairu wore faded dresses too often. Little Somadina laughed easily, unaware of how fragile their lives were. Obinna noticed everything, and each detail wounded him deeply, carving resentment into his chest. Neighbors spoke carelessly, comparing him to others. Some advised patience. Others mocked him openly. Obinna nodded and swallowed words he wished to throw like stones. Inside, a quiet rage matured. At night, sleep avoided him. Mosquitoes whined like accusations. Generators roared in the distance, reminding him that others could afford light. Obinna prayed, but his prayers were bitter, heavy with comparison. He asked God questions that had no patience. Why him? Why struggle without reward? Why watch fools prosper while effort rotted? His faith thinned, stretched by disappointment. The breaking point came on a hot Tuesday afternoon. A trader he owed money stormed his stall, shouting insults loud enough to draw a crowd. The words were sharp, humiliating, designed to reduce him. Customers laughed. Someone spat near his feet. Obinna stood frozen, heat burning his face, shame crawling under his skin. When the man left, Obinna packed his goods slowly, hands shaking, something inside him cracking permanently. That night, Obinna did not return home. He walked until familiar streets disappeared, until the glow of electric bulbs thinned into darkness. Bushes swallowed the road. Crickets sang. His heart pounded with rage and exhaustion. He replayed the insults repeatedly, each repetition hardening his resolve. Poverty had embarrassed him for the last time. That was when the old man appeared, standing calmly beside a narrow footpath as though waiting. The man looked ordinary, yet his eyes were unsettling, sharp, ancient, too knowing. He studied Obinna without blinking. "You are tired of being poor," he said softly. Obinna froze. No one had ever spoken his thoughts aloud. "I can change your story," the man continued. "But wealth listens to sacrifice, not tears." Fear rose, but desperation drowned it. Obinna followed him deeper into the bush, ignoring the voice that begged him to turn back. Leaves brushed his legs like warnings. The air grew colder, heavier. They walked in silence until the air pressed against Obinna's chest. The old man stopped and faced him. "Think carefully," he warned. "What you are about to gain will demand payment." Obinna thought of insults, hunger, his children's faces, his wife's tired eyes. He nodded. That single nod split his life in two. When Obinna finally returned home near dawn, Ifunanya was waiting, worry etched into her face. He avoided her questions, offering excuses that sounded thin even to himself. He washed his hands repeatedly, as though removing something unseen. But something had changed inside him. The anger was sharper, focused, hungry. For the first time, poverty felt beatable, conquerable. Within days, small miracles appeared. A customer paid double. Another bought in bulk. A forgotten debtor returned money without explanation. Obinna told himself it was luck. He smiled more, walked straighter. Yet at night, he dreamed of eyes watching him from the dark, and footsteps following just behind, always just behind. Obinna began spending more time alone, staring at ceilings, calculating futures that no longer included begging. He touched money with suspicion and excitement. When customers praised him, he listened too closely. When Ifunanya asked gentle questions, he deflected. A wall formed between them, invisible but solid. Deep inside, a quiet fear stirred. He did not know its name yet. He only knew that something had answered him in the dark, and that answers are never free. Even as hope returned to his days, dread moved into his nights, settling beside him like an uninvited guest who planned to stay. Obinna ignored the warning feeling, choosing ambition over caution, hunger over conscience, believing control belonged to him alone, unaware that the path he stepped onto had already closed behind him forever. The night air watched silently as his fate sealed itself without ceremony or mercy. And the journey began. Slowly. The shrine revealed itself slowly, as if it needed Obinna's permission to exist. Thick trees circled the clearing, their branches bent inward like listeners sharing a secret. The air smelled of burnt herbs, damp earth, and something metallic that made Obinna's throat tighten. Every step forward felt heavier, as though the ground itself resisted him. The old man moved easily, confidently, never looking back, certain Obinna would follow. At the center of the clearing stood a low altar stained dark by age and offerings. Chalk symbols crawled across stones like white scars. Calabashes lined the ground, some cracked, some sealed. The silence was unnatural. Even insects seemed afraid to make noise. Obinna's heartbeat sounded too loud, too exposed. The native doctor sat cross-legged before the altar, his back straight, his eyes closed. He opened them slowly when Obinna approached, studying him with calm interest. His voice, when he spoke, was soft, almost soothing. "You came because hunger is louder than fear," he said. Obinna swallowed and nodded. The man explained the covenant carefully, like a teacher guiding a slow student. Wealth would come quickly and multiply steadily. Doors would open without knocking. Favor would follow Obinna like a shadow. But payment would be required, not once, but continuously. "Blood remembers blood," the man repeated. "What feeds you must recognize you." Obinna asked questions, but only safe ones. How fast? How much? How long? He avoided the word sacrifice, avoided imagining faces. The native doctor did not force details. He only warned, once agreed, there is no return. Refusal invites collection. Fear flared, but desperation burned hotter. Obinna thought of insults, of empty pots, of his children sleeping hungry. He agreed. The ritual was brief but unsettling. Chants filled the air, low and rhythmic, vibrating inside Obinna's bones. A blade flashed. Something warm touched his skin. He did not look down. When it ended, the native doctor wiped his hands and smiled. "Go," he said. "Watch your life change." Change came quickly. The next morning, Obinna sold more goods than usual. A customer insisted on paying extra. Another promised to return. By week's end, his stall overflowed with buyers. Money gathered in his pockets, unfamiliar and thrilling. He expanded his stock, then his space. Within months, he moved into a proper shop. People greeted him differently. Respect replaced mockery. Envy joined admiration. At home, Ifunanya noticed the shift. Obinna brought food without hesitation. Meat returned to their plates. The children laughed more freely. But something felt wrong. Obinna prayed less. He locked doors to make phone calls. He woke at night drenched in sweat, muttering words he refused to explain. Dreams invaded the household. Ifunanya dreamed of rivers running red. Chibuzo woke crying, claiming someone called his name from the dark. Obinna dreamed of whispers counting slowly, patiently. When little Somodina fell ill without warning, fever burning her tiny body, Obinna felt dread coil tightly in his stomach. He paid for hospitals, drugs, prayers. Doctors found nothing. The illness lingered like a question no one wanted to answer. One night, the old man appeared outside Obinna's shop as though summoned by thought. "Do not interfere," he warned gently. "Payment has begun." Obinna argued weakly. "She is just a child." The man's eyes hardened. "You did not ask who would be counted." Guilt clawed at Obinna, but greed pushed it down. He convinced himself it was coincidence, sickness common and unfair. He returned to counting money, expanding plans, silencing doubts. Somodina's condition worsened. Her laughter faded. Her eyes searched Obinna's face with quiet trust. He avoided them. When she reached for him, his chest tightened painfully. He told himself sacrifice was abstract, distant, necessary. On the seventh night, as rain beat the roof relentlessly, Somodina's breathing slowed. Ifunanya screamed for help. Obinna stood frozen in the doorway, hands trembling, understanding crashing into him with crushing clarity. By morning, the house was silent. Obinna sat beside his daughter's still body, staring at his reflection in her lifeless eyes. Outside, the rain stopped abruptly, and sunlight broke through the clouds. His phone vibrated with bank alerts. Large sums appeared, multiplying effortlessly. Obinna did not smile. He had crossed a line drawn in blood, and the covenant had accepted its first payment. The whispers returned that night, satisfied but hungry, promising this was only the beginning. Wealth entered Obinna's life like a conqueror and turned his home into occupied territory. The new house was large, painted cream and gold, but warmth never followed them inside. Laughter faded. Silence became permanent. Somodina's illness worsened without explanation. Doctors shrugged. Prayers went unanswered. One quiet night, her small body grew cold. Obinna stood over her corpse and felt nothing. At the burial, people whispered. Some said he was lucky. Others said his eyes looked empty. After Somodina's death, his wealth doubled. But peace vanished completely. At night, Obinna heard footsteps. He smelled blood. He saw his daughter in dreams, staring at him, not crying, just watching. Still, he continued. The native doctor returned with new demands. The spirits were hungry. Obinna resisted for the first time. That resistance cost him Chibuzo. A fatal accident. A mangled body. A scream that tore Obinna's throat raw. He begged. He fasted. He prayed. But covenants do not negotiate. Ifunanya lost her mind. She wandered the house calling her children's names, clawing walls, laughing and crying in the same breath. The money remained, but it felt cursed. Ifunanya's grief shattered what remained of her mind. She wandered the house at night, calling the children's names, clutching invisible hands, laughing and crying without warning. The house filled with her wails. Even the walls seemed to recoil. Money still came, but it felt heavier now, stained and useless. Obinna avoided mirrors. Sleep abandoned him. Every sound felt like judgment. The debt had not ended, it had only deepened, and Obinna understood too late that it would never truly be paid. Collapse came quietly, without drama. One morning, Obinna woke to missed calls and frozen accounts. Properties were seized. Businesses failed simultaneously, as though coordinated by an unseen hand. Friends disappeared. Respect evaporated. Ifunanya vanished one night, leaving the house empty and cold. Obinna searched hospitals, streets, churches. He never found her. Some said she wandered into the bush. Others said the spirits finally claimed her. Obinna stopped asking. Desperate and broken, he returned to the bush for the last time, begging for mercy. The shrine was gone. Trees stood ordinary and silent, as if nothing evil had ever happened there. Obinna screamed until his voice failed. He became a wanderer, thin and muttering, calling names only the wind answered. In Onitsha main market, traders still speak of him in hushed tones. They say wealth bought with blood never lasts, and the shadows always collect what they are owed.